Hello and good evening. Welcome to the very first of our parental workshops here at Invicta Grammar. My name is Mr. Ben Tillbrook and I'm the librarian here at Invicta. So it's my job to sort of support your children with their reading and with all of those aspects of their learning as well. Tonight, I'm going to be talking to you about a few things. It's going to be roughly sort of 15-20 minutes, the talk, and then we'll do a short Q&A session afterwards where I'll address one or two of the key questions that you've submitted to the form. After that, any other questions that are submitted will be put together and posted out via a link in Invicta News later this week. So without further ado, because you've all got plenty to do this evening, I will get started. So the first thing I'm going to talk to you about tonight is what literacy actually is. I think it's really important to get a definition out there for you all so you understand what we're actually looking at, what it matters, and why we spend so much time focusing on it within school itself. After that, I'm going to talk about specifically why it's important for secondary students, their development into the future, ways to support at home, so simple, easy strategies that you yourselves can implement for no cost, and then I'll talk about how to identify appropriate books for your child. So how to help them find things that are correct for their age range. The content is all okay. In a modern world with increasing access to resources, it's really important to look at all of that. So literacy is defined as the ability to read, write, speak, and listen in a way that lets us communicate effectively and make sense of the world. This is the Natural Literacy Trust's definition for it, and it addresses all aspects of literacy. So the ability to interact with the world around us, how we're looking at things and interpreting that which is around us. Reading obviously forms a very central part of that. And so roughly 16.4, so just over 7 million people in the UK are currently categorised as having very poor literacy skills. Now, I think there's a really common misinterpretation here that low literacy equals low intelligence, and I think it's important to address off the bat that that isn't the case. What we're looking at instead is people that struggle to access that content and actually just need more support in a way that, you know, lots of people need glasses to see better or hearing aids to hear. Literacy is something, again, we can support and address as a society. So it's now time to talk about the actual benefits of reading. So obviously I would like to focus on the enjoyment aspect and the discovery. You know, we're all looking at new knowledge, new ways of accessing the world around us, but I'm going to focus on some of the cynical benefits as well for your benefit tonight. So actually studies have proven that just 15 minutes a week from the age of 11 onwards, students go on to earn on average £4,240 more a year than those that aren't reading 15 minutes a week. Now that can apply in year 7, year 8, year 9, all the way through to sixth form. And what we're looking at isn't the case of you read more, you get more money. It's you have a wider vocabulary. You're able to access higher level jobs, higher level material than before. It also makes you happier and healthier. So obviously during lockdown, it was a very key aspect for a lot of people, going outside, sitting in the sun with a book. 30 minutes a week is the target for this one. And it shows that you're 20% more likely to report a greater life satisfaction, which I think is really important and actually one of the central things. The biggest of which we find for a lot of our students and a lot of people in general, is that it's proven better than any other hobby, any other activity, watching TV, watching a movie, whatever. Reading is 60% more likely to reduce your stress levels, 68% reduction in stress levels. And it actually makes you healthier. So just in the same way you go to the gym, you work out, we have the same with reading. Reading exercises your mind, it strengthens the synapses, makes you 2.5 times less likely to suffer Alzheimer's, dementia, and elongate life in that way as well. Better mental health, I know we've touched upon this already with the aspects of happier and healthier, but it shows that reading more often allows children to access greater empathy and understanding of the self. What they're seeing in the books and the blogs and the websites and the articles they're reading is more about the world around them. They have greater understanding of their own and others' identities, but also, really importantly, they're seeing difficult challenges that they themselves might face played out through the books and the graphic novels and the audiobooks that they're enjoying. And finally, and for most importantly for some people, reading is the #1 factor in exam success. The higher your literacy rate, the better you're going to do in every exam across the board. This applies in maths, in science, in all of those subjects where literacy isn't traditionally sort of addressed or seen as important. What we're looking at is that if they're understanding the question, they can understand how to structure the answer. And the Read All About It report that was published in 2017 is a really, really valuable resource in highlighting this. It's open access, available online. So if you are interested in looking at that, please feel free to check it out after this talk today. So we've dealt with the benefits. We've dealt with what literacy actually is and why it's important within a secondary aspect. It's now time for me to sort of give you some help and some support from the school and easy ways that you can support your child with their reading at home. So the first thing I want to focus on is this idea of multimedia reading. So we're not just looking at the classic sort of image of a library that we all share, which is this reams and reams of bookshelves filled with paper. That's not the way that students are accessing libraries these days necessarily. We have a very valuable and a very prolific collection of books here at Invicta, which are available to borrow by all students for free. But we're also looking at the graphic novels, the audiobooks, the digital offering that we can increase. I'll start probably first with fiction and non-fiction, since they're the most sort of often engaged with. So these are your fiction books, your non-fiction. You're looking at blog posts, websites, articles, all of this stuff, traditional forms of reading where you see words on a page and you're getting something from it, whether that's enjoyment, whether that's knowledge. That's what we're looking for here. They're easily available both through the school and the public libraries. There's endless ideas and stories to choose from, so choice is really, really important, and we'll come back to that a little bit later. It's all about what your child wants to read. Graphic novels, manga, comics are something we're seeing massive growth in at the moment, both in the publishing world, but also in reading in general. We're looking at books that are brought to life with beautiful illustrations and artwork. They help students with understanding narrative flow and plot. So if you've got a child that maybe struggles with understanding and tracking the story all the way through, graphic novels and comics are a really valuable way to access that. Use them to tap into your child's interests and promote wider reading, but also when they're coming to GCSE years, there's a really valuable collection of books that have now been adapted to graphic novel format for them as well. They give a really short, snappy version of the story, but also one that's very, very engageable with. And finally, audiobooks. Now, audiobooks are a bit of a contentious issue within the library community, and I'm very, very much in favour of them as a tool for supporting reading. They're incredibly valuable at increasing engagement with reluctant readers. They're incredibly valuable at helping students access books that they might otherwise not be able to. In terms of actual literacy engagement, things get a little bit trickier. And the National Literacy Trust has done a lot of valuable work in reviewing the research that's out there. And they've published an incredible document called Audiobooks and Literacy, which is available on their website. I'd thoroughly recommend reading about it and the ways in which it can enhance your child's learning. But essentially what it boils down to is audiobooks are incredibly valuable for expanding vocabulary, comprehension skills, good for decoding. So all of the skills we pick up very naturally through reading, audiobooks are helping with. What they're not as helpful for is that sort of more traditional approach with reading. So the actual face-to-face looking at a word, figuring out what it means, that's where I would recommend using an audiobook alongside a physical copy to support your child like that. It's almost a read-along that you can do individually. Now, I want to talk about some actual strategies, some things you can put in action that you can use very simply. Number one is that choice is key. Okay, whatever your child is reading, whatever they're looking at, engaging with, if it's not something they enjoy, it's not something they're gonna engage with. We all have our favorite books. We all have our favorite articles, whatever that we enjoy reading. And yes, it's really valuable and really important to share those with your child. But if they are choosing what they're picking, it's going to encourage long-term benefits and engagement as well. And I think that's the really important point to address here, is that if your child is learning to read or engaging continually with reading, any progress is good progress. So if they read for 5 minutes a week, whereas they never read before, that's a tremendous step for them, and that's something to be celebrated and encouraged. The next most important thing is that children really benefit from modelled reading. Now, in primary school, this is done very simply by sitting down with a parent, reading alongside them. When they're in secondary, they're a bit of a gruffer teenager. It's not always as simple to do that. So what I actually recommend in most cases is to sit down and read at the same time as them. Sit in the same room and enjoy a break of your own with a book or an article, and then actually come back together and talk about it afterwards. That can be over dinner, it could be over a meal, however you like to enjoy it. But the really valuable thing to take away from this is that parental support and involvement is essential in encouraging a healthy reading habit. There's over 97 studies that basically boil down to the point that whatever we do as a school, no matter how much support we put in, it pales in comparison to seeing a parent read alongside them. I think one of the really important things to consider as well is that not to be afraid of change. It's very easy to say, okay, you've picked that book, we're now going to finish that book and we're going to stick with it until you've finished. And actually, it's okay to swap it out. Don't stick with it if they're not enjoying it or you're not enjoying it. Not every book's going to be a winner, and it's really important to move on if it's not right for them. So we've talked about this idea of 15 minutes at a time, and that's really valuable both to put in practice, to find sort of every few days, every week, once a week. The guideline for the maximum amount of benefits is roughly 75 minutes of reading a week. So you're assuming maybe 15 minutes, Monday to Saturday, Sunday off. That's the best benefits. But as we've already talked about, those benefits start to appear from just 15 minutes a week. So it's about those small victories, taking just 15 minutes in your time, sit aside, have a little read of something you enjoy, of something they enjoy, and then come back together and talk about it. These days, there's a lot of opportunities in the local community, so public libraries, museums, places like the National Literacy Trust and the Book Trust are really valuable in sharing competitions and things that you can engage with as a parent and with your child as well. And then finally, and I think most importantly, take everyday opportunities to read. So I'm sure most of us have seen that Tesco advert with the mum whose son really struggles with reading, and then she has him in the kitchen and he's reading the recipes for her. So those are the small sort of moments where we can encourage reading and build that sort of long-term healthy engagement with it. Board games are a fantastic way not just to relax as a family, but also to encourage reading. Have them read the instruction booklet to you rather than you reading it. Look at film reviews, blog posts, etc. Recipes, obviously, we've already talked about. Finally, I want to talk to you about selecting appropriate material for your child. So it's the problem we have with TikTok being what it is these days and lots of other sources. It's very easy for students to come home with books that are massively beyond the content they should be accessing. We've had a few cases recently in reading lessons where we've caught students with things like Colleen Hoover's It Ends With Us, students as young as year 7 and 8. And I think what people aren't aware of is books cover a great range of topics. Colleen Hoover's It Ends With Us, for example, covers issues of sexual assault, things like that. Very graphically detailed, very difficult to cope with when it's a young mind. They can be explored very healthily through a book in a safe environment, but I think it's about identifying those key aspects and when something is appropriate for your child. We have reading lists for all of our year groups, 7 and 8, 8 through to 10, and then year 11 upwards, and they are published on our website and will be made available later this week. For year 7 and 8, you obviously have access to Accelerated Reader and the ZPD stickers to identify what your child should be reading, what is an appropriate level for them, and to use that as a guideline, really. For content, I would recommend sites like Accelerated Reader, Goodreads, Common Sense. Goodreads is just a plethora of reviews. Thousands of users across the globe, all talking about the books they enjoy, all reviewing them, all putting words together to summarize what they are. Common Sense doesn't just apply to books, but is very valuable for everything, actually. And it's a parent and child reviewed process. So they have 2 age ratings on all of their content, one which is the adult identified and one which is the student. So something like One of Us is Lying, which is tremendously popular, both as a book and on Netflix at the moment. The actual age rating on that is 14 plus, but parents and students both agree that it's sort of 12, 13. So that's a very valuable place to access that. That sort of really brings us to the end of the bulk of my presentation. Just to let you know, we're planning sort of some future sessions around reading. One sort of focused for year 7 and 8 parents on accelerated reader, Home Connect, how to get the most out of that, how to understand all of that's going on. And then we're looking at possibly doing one on reading and wellbeing later on in a later date, diving into all of those values, all of those benefits around all of that. Finally, I just want to draw your attention back to the recommended reading list that we have on the website. We also have a supporting reading at home guide that is published on the website already. If you'd like to have a look at it, it was sent out to year 7 and 8 parents and students a while back, but it is still up to date, still very valuable as it is. And then obviously in Victor News, we manage the content for all of that and we release it as it is. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. If you do have any questions, please feel free to contact me at librarian@invicta.viat.org.uk. I'm always happy to answer questions, always happy to take any queries, and even give book recommendations occasionally. We'll now move on to the sort of Q&A section. So hopefully you have the form link available. If you would like to submit any, I will hang around for the next sort of 5-10 minutes in case any do appear that people would like answering. But thank you very much for your time. The recording of this will be made available on the website later this week as well, if you'd like to share it with anyone at home. Have a lovely evening and take care.